Last time we saw the Doctor, he had just defeated an army of Daleks and Cybermen, together. But it was a Pyrrhic victory, as Rose, the love of his life, the only human he could see himself settling down with, was trapped in an alternate reality. She was with her family and ex-boyfriend Mickey, who changed his name to Ricky recently, because that's who his alternate self was. But sadly, Rose and the Doctor couldn't be together. And so the last Time Lord once again traveled alone. Until a very loud, very opinionated, very abrasive, very sarcastic, in short, perfect woman named Donna appears in the TARDIS. We start at Donna's wedding. And yeah, I called her perfect. Because, I don't know, maybe I got a thing for women who aren't demure. But I digress. She's walking down the aisle with her granddad, Wilfred Mott, who we'll meet later. But for now, she's walking down the aisle, all eyes are on her. Her best friend Neris wishes she was dead. Donna, that is. And Donna is just drinking it up. So much so that she's glowing. Literally. As if she's radioactive. And then she teleports to the TARDIS. And the Doctor can't figure out why. He has no idea what's going on. Until Donna snaps him out of it and orders him to get her to the church on time. So they land back on Earth, in London, but nowhere near the church that she's supposed to be at, and everyone's panicking. She tries calling on a payphone, but everyone's using their phones to try to contact her, so no call is getting through. And eventually, everyone's cell phone batteries die, so there's that. And while the Doctor is busy trying to use the sonic screwdriver to get cab fare to get Donna there the old-fashioned way, she does a bit of panhandling, promising to pay a random lady back, and gets herself a taxi. There's just one problem. It's being driven by a very familiar-looking Santa. Yeah, it turns out the Santa robots are back, and this time someone is controlling them. Someone with red claws and chattering, cackling teeth in orbit around a star-shaped spiderweb-looking spaceship. Eventually, Donna realizes that Santa's a robot, and luckily, the Doctor saw who was driving the cab and rescues her. And when the Doctor mentions some unmentionables that Rose left behind, he's a bit cagey when it comes to what happened to her and explaining it to Donna. In fact, she's reluctant to jump out of a moving vehicle even though it's going to crash because the Santa robot has been partially deactivated. And she asks the Doctor what happened to the woman who trusted the Doctor before her. And the Doctor insists that she is very alive and that Donna can trust him. And so luckily they manage to escape for the moment and land the TARDIS, which overtaxes the poor machine, so it has to cool off for a while. Unfortunately, it's too late. they've lost their reservation at the church, and so they have to move to the reception area. But the doctor still has a ring for her. A little biodampener, because whatever energy that called her to the TARDIS, and whatever energy the robot Santas are tracking, they're going to hone in on her eventually. So the doctor puts sort of a cloaking device on her. And then she muses about going back in time. And this is before she knew the TARDIS was a time machine. The doctor quickly kiboshes that, saying you can't go back on your own time stream because of space bats. Eventually, they make it to the reception area to find everyone kind of partying. And after she yells at her friends and family for starting the party up without her, they start yelling at her that she was gone. Although some crocodile tears gained them their sympathy eventually. Luckily, the doctor has a nose for investigation and finds out there's footage of her teleporting away. And he recognizes the energy that is used to take her away. But it's ancient. It hasn't been used since the Dark Times. Not the Dark Ages, but the Dark Times. Like, potentially before the Time Lords started meddling and stuff. But then he realizes the energy is so old, it predates biodampener technology. Yep, the Santa's been tracking them the whole time. And they've still got remote control Christmas trees. Only this time, they use the ornaments as bombs. And they start a whole bunch of chaos. Luckily, the doctor uses his sonic screwdriver in the sound system to overload the robots and causes them to fall apart. Thankfully, no one loses their hearing, though. And he also finds out that while the tree baubles have their own remote, the Santas are being controlled elsewhere. And so, they decide to go on a hunt for whoever might be in control. Now, the doctor doesn't have much to go on, so first he asks Donna who she works for. Turns out it's a sort of a locksmith company that is the sole property of Torchwood. Now, since the incident with the Cybermen and the Daleks, Torchwood was effectively destroyed, but someone is still running the locksmith company. And on their way to investigate, the doctor, Donna, and Donna's fiancé, Lance, they talk about how Donna met Lance and how he, an executive, offered her a temp a coffee, and how he practically begged her to marry him, even though they haven't known each other a while. Only the truth is, she begged him to marry her. And eventually, they set a date, and as they explore the empty locksmith facility, they discover a sub-basement with a tunnel leading to who knows where. So the three of them take segways from one end of a long hallway to another, laughing at the ridiculousness. I don't know if that was scripted or not. And eventually they find a facility that's harvesting the energy inside Donna from the water of the Thames River. They're actually under it. And then it's revealed who is in control of the whole operation. a giant female spider alien known as the Queen of the Arachnos. She's got an army of robots who look more like picture a cross between the helmet of the Rocketeer, remember that movie, and classic Greys. That's what the robots sort of look like. And they've got guns. Big guns. And eventually, the Arachnos Queen makes her presence known and tells the Doctor her plan. Turns out, buried at the center of the Earth is a brood of Arachnos offspring. Now that's bad, because the Arachnos are cannibals. They'll eat an entire planet alive, just like it was a wounded bird in a pool of piranhas. They're born starving. And as it turns out, back when the first few space empires came to power, they all banded together and wiped out the Arachnos, or so they thought. The Queen survived, hibernating at the edge of the universe for a couple billion years, while her young were buried at the center of the Earth. And the Doctor wants to know how. But before that happens, Lance slips away, gets an axe, and while Donna distracts her, Lance prepares to ask the Arachnos Queen a question. Yes, I went there. Unfortunately, it's a trick. Lance raises the axe but doesn't let it come down. He's actually working with Queen Arachnos. And he lays into Donna in a way that would make his death by Dalek extermination quite justified. This guy had the love of Donna flipping Noble, and he threw it away for some spider wench. I really, really hate that guy. The actor did an amazing job making the character despicable. Anyway, luckily, before the Doctor and Donna get killed and captured respectively, the Doctor uses the sonic screwdriver to draw the TARDIS's tiny bit of the ancient energy to Donna Noble, so it forms around the two of them. And then they teleport away. Now this ticks off the Arachnos Queen to no end. Because now she's got to build a new key. Because apparently Donna's a key of some sort. Luckily, she knows exactly how to create a new key. Turns out, Lance was dosing her with the liquid ancient energy, which then activated when her emotions hit their peak as she walked down the aisle. So now he's force-fed the same ancient energy in liquid form, and his fear of what's going to happen is what charges the particles. Meanwhile, the Doctor and Donna, who's been left totally heartbroken, poor thing. I really hope Lance suffers for this. Anyway, they go back to the beginning of the solar system. A new sun burning in the sky, rocks and dust that are about to form the Earth, and eventually the Doctor finds the Arachnos brood ship, and it gathers the rocks and dust onto itself and actually forms the Earth. turns out the center of the Earth isn't a molten lump of pure nickel. It's Arachnos brood ship. It's been there the whole time. And so, the Doctor and Donna head back to the present. Only the Doctor kicks them a few yards away so they can keep running. And while the Doctor is forming a plan, Donna gets kidnapped and trussed up. And we find out that the founder of the company she and Lance work for, he's already been used for food by Queen Arachnos. And so, trussed up in a web, Queen Arachnos forces a mock wedding between Donna and Lance and has her robots purge the energy from Donna and send it down to the brood, where they awaken. And they start their climb up from the center of the Earth. Hopefully it'll take them a while. And in order to give them the energy to climb, she sends Lance down there to be torn apart and eaten alive. Which was too good for him, I say. Luckily, the Doctor is able to swipe an alien robot costume and blend in. Of course, Queen Arachnos sees right through it. So, the Doctor and the Queen banter a bit. The Doctor states that he can find a place for her and her brood where they can exist peacefully, maybe eating non-sapient life forms, or maybe he can convince them to become vegetarians, who knows. But the Queen doesn't agree. She thinks she's won, so she says, "The heck with you, I'm gonna shoot you." And this forces the Doctor to unleash his fury, the same fury that burned Gallifrey. Because he came prepared. He's got one of the robot remotes and a handful of explosive baubles, which he then tosses and activates, causing the Thames River to flood the facility, go down the hole, and drown the Arachnos brood alive. And this, I have to say, is one of the darkest moments in all of Doctor Who history. Even more disturbing than Six strangling Perry, or Perry being possessed by Sif's boss. After freeing Donna, who gets swung out and smacked into a wall, George of the Jungle style, she tells the Doctor he can stop now. So, the two of them head to the surface while the Arachnos Queen heads to her ship, which has been busy tenderizing the population with energy beams. Instead, she decides to just burn it all down. But the joke's on her. The Doctor has done too much damage, and she's used too much energy. She has none to run her ship's shields. So, on the orders of someone named Mr. Saxon, tanks from the British military roll up and blow the Queen and her ship to Kingdom Come. The day is saved. But the Doctor has shown his ugly side, which kind of terrified Donna. So, when he offers to show her the universe, she politely declines. She'd rather spend some time on Earth, walking in the dust. It seems the last couple of incidents when stuff happened, she wasn't there to witness it, because she was either hungover or scuba diving on another continent. But now she wants to experience the world properly. Although the Doctor does give her a nice little Christmas present, he uses the TARDIS to make it snow. And with that, the Doctor and Donna Noble part ways as friends. Next, we meet a young woman named Martha Jones. She's talking to her family, who seem pretty decent. She got a brother, she got a sister, she got a dad who divorced her mom and shacked up with some skinny white broad. And the mom hates her. And frankly, I don't see why he would trade a 10 for a 4. Yeah, she doesn't get enough points to be a 10 because, despite looking good, she's got nothing upstairs. But then again, most men are stupid. So, there you go. Anyway, Martha bumps into the Doctor, who shows her his tie for some reason. Then she goes to the hospital where she's training to be a doctor. Unfortunately, there seems to be a lot of static buildup. Everyone keeps getting shocked. Luckily, it's not Daleks. Unluckily, when a storm cloud forms directly over the hospital, it starts raining upwards, and there's no explanation for it. Then, in a flash, the hospital and everyone in it land on the moon. Luckily, the Doctor is already in the hospital, posing as a patient. So, together, he and Martha figure out what's going on, because they are the only ones that don't seem to be panicking right now. Well, them and a little old lady who seems to be somewhat senile, probably because she doesn't have enough salt in her diet. So first they figure out that they seem to be trapped in an air bubble, and also they've only got the air they had with them in the first place. They're not generating their own. And finally, they figure out who's behind this little kidnapping plot. Some alien spaceships descend, and some big guys in big suits come to the hospital. Large anthropomorphic rhinos, who are in fact aliens who call themselves the Judoon. They quickly utilize a translator to give them the ability to speak to the humans. Then they state their intentions. They're searching for an alien in that hospital, and they go by process of elimination. They scan the people, they come back as human, the humans are marked, they move on. Turns out they're police officers for hire, sort of independent contractors. Unfortunately, they're big and scary looking, and one guy panics, clocks one over the head with a vase. It does nothing. And the Judoon enact swift and brutal, in their eyes, justice. An officer was attacked. The person is guilty. The punishment, disintegration. Meanwhile, the Doctor, who's trying to access the files of the hospital to figure out who might be exhibiting some sort of potential odd characteristics, is getting nowhere because the Judoon have locked and erased the system. They're effective to a degree, but they're also a bit thick. They don't think about the bigger picture. They sort of, I should say, the doctor sort of gets some help from Martha, who distracts the Judoon with some of the doctor's DNA she got from a deep kiss, giving him time to look for any clues. Meanwhile, the head doctor of the hospital, he comes across the little old lady who doesn't seem to be panicking, and we find out that the reason she's salt deficient is because she's some sort of vampire. She needs human blood to blend in so the Judoon will scan her as human and leave her alone and give her time to make her escape. She doesn't have fangs or anything. She has a bendy straw. A bendy straw. How are you going to stick that in a human neck? It's just going to snap. I guess it's an alien bendy straw because it works. Eventually, Martha comes across the little old lady drinking the poor doctor guy like he's a smoothie. Santa Clarita Diet style. And she's got muscle. Robots made out of leather. Martha bumped into one earlier. They look like bikers, but they're faceless. Eventually, the doctor is found out, and both the Judoon and the little old lady's henchmen start chasing after him. He manages to take out one of the henchmen by souping up an X-ray machine so it blasts it with radiation. Unfortunately, he's got to get that radiation out of his system quickly, the doctor. Puts it in his shoe and dumps it in a biohazard container. So now he's barefoot on the moon. He also observes that when the Judoon showed up, they had to just make a rhyme. A platoon of Judoon upon the moon. Which is wildly different from what he could have said had he used his Scottish accent. Probably somewhere along the line of Judoon mean platoon. But I guess the producers insisted he use a more English accent. Anyway, eventually the doctor gets himself attacked by the little old lady who is overcharging a scanner so that it sends out a pulse which will fry everyone on the moon and on half the Earth, including the Judoon, leaving her free to make her escape. But she makes the mistake of feeding on the doctor, who happens to be an alien. Luckily, Martha is just in time to get the Judoon to scan the little old lady one more time and come back as alien. And we find out what exactly she is and why she's on the run. She's something called a plasmavore. Someone who can assimilate DNA based off of blood. And her crime was killing a young princess. Yeah, she killed a little girl. I say leave her to the Daleks. Except there are no Daleks left. Luckily, after the Judoon actually disintegrate the right person, and retreat because of the building energy of the scanner, the doctor manages to find and unplug the right thing and save the day. Unfortunately, the people in the hospital have used up all their air. In fact, Martha gives literally her last breath to wake up the doctor because he's been drained nearly dry and he's passed out. And she realizes at the very last second that the doctor has two hearts, which she suspected earlier, and she remembers to palpate both of them to get the doctor going again. And that's when he unplugs the scanner. And he puts his faith in the Judoon not to leave the people on the moon. And his faith is rewarded. They get sent back to Earth and try to explain what's going on to the police. So, Martha gets introduced to the doctor proper. He shows her the TARDIS, that it's bigger on the inside, that it can travel, and that it's a time machine. This is when he goes back and shows her his tie. So then, he offers, as a thank you, a trip. One trip, and then back home, which she jumps on. And so they go on their first proper adventure, back to 1599, to meet Bill Shakespeare himself. Unfortunately, it seems Mr. Shakespeare and his fellow thespians, that's thespians, it's an old world term for actors, they're besieged by actual witches. One witch lures young men into her house so she and her sisters can feed on him monster style. And yeah, they look like proper witches, except they're not green. And they like to speak in rhymes, because while math is the language of the universe, the right sentences in the right order have a magic of their own, words of power. And Martha and the doctor witness the power of these witches firsthand. After seeing a Shakespeare play in the Globe Theatre and seeing Bill Shakespeare himself address the audience, much like a stand-up comedian, less regal than he normally comes off as, because really he was never regal. He's a man of the people. They meet him personally and witness the owner of the theater chastising Shakespeare because he has been able to approve of the script for the upcoming play, which is a sequel that apparently never existed. Shakespeare's lost play. Something about finding love after losing it. But, unfortunately, the poor guy meets one of the witches who steals some of his hair and makes a voodoo doll, an actual voodoo doll type thing, which she uses to drown him. Yeah. Furthermore, when the doctor realizes there's witchcraft about, and realizes there's something special about the Globe Theatre, but in a bad way, he tries to talk to the architect of the theater, who's been shut up in a madhouse after losing his mind. Also, at one point, he shows Shakespeare the psychic paper that he has. Only Shakespeare sees it as blank. He can see through the psychic barrier. And he flirts with Martha and the doctor at the same time. And the doctor mentions 57 academics who I guess thought Shakespeare swung both ways. But anyway, they try to talk to the madman, only for one of the witches to show up, kill him with a touch, and then stop one of the doctor's hearts. And then she flies away on a broom. But not before the doctor realizes what she is. An alien called a Carrionite. And knowing their names allows him to, at least for the moment, drive back the witch that tried to kill him. And while Martha tries to use the name to her advantage, it didn't work. It only works once. And the witch knocks Martha out by easily guessing her name. Eventually, it's revealed that the witches are manipulating Shakespeare to write the play and killing anyone who tries to stop him from doing it. So on the big night, the actors speak the lines and open up a portal which releases a whole bunch of other Carrionites from a place called the Howling Dark. And with the doctor unable to do anything because he's out of his depth, he has Shakespeare look deep inside himself and freestyle a counterspell, which involves quoting Harry Potter and praising J.K. Rowling, which aged fabulously. And so, the Carrionites are sent back to the Howling Dark, and the three witches from earlier are trapped in one of their own crystal balls. And while Shakespeare has a way with words and tries to seduce Martha one last time, the fact that he needs a breath mint causes him to flame out. But it's not all somberness, because it seems the Queen herself, Elizabeth II, or whichever one, Good Queen Bess, the Virgin Queen, wants to see the play, which apparently got good reviews since the whole fracas with the Carrionites was seen as part of the play. The audience wasn't the wiser. Unfortunately, two things occurred. The play, along with the Carrionites, went into the Howling Dark, never to be seen again. And when Queen Elizabeth sees the Doctor, she recognizes him and calls him her mortal enemy, and goes full Queen of Hearts off with his head to her escorts. But the Doctor doesn't know her yet. And so the Doctor and Martha run away to their next adventure. Back to New Earth. Only something's different. There are people stranded on this motorway, taking decades to move just a few miles. And in the fast lane at the very bottom of the gridlock, there's something in the fog. It kills several vehicles before the Doctor and Martha show up. Only this time they're not going to a hospital or seeing the city from a distance. They go to the slums, where peddlers are selling patches of moods, like drugs, but different. Unfortunately, Martha gets captured by two people who want to use the fast lane, which is designed only for 3 people at a time, 3 adults. And so, Martha experiences the sleep patch. That's what they use to knock her out. And the doctor has to go from car to car, meeting various colorful characters. A cat man and his human wife and their kittens. A guy in a bowler hat. A guy who's bright red. 2 nudists. An albino. Just a whole bunch of various colorful characters living on the motorway. Meanwhile, Martha finds out that her captors plan to spend years on the motorway just to get to the outskirts of the city, where there's hopefully work. Except the motorway is locked. You can get in, but you can't get out. She also finds out that A, the woman of the group is pregnant, and B, she's wearing a truth patch, which Martha sees as really, really stupid because she's pregnant, she shouldn't be using drugs. And eventually they get to the fast lane, only to find something in the fog that attacks them every time they try to move. Even the sound of engines idling causes a ruckus. So, they have to shut down the engines. And unfortunately, without the engines, they're slowly asphyxiating. That's the second time Martha's nearly asphyxiated. Meanwhile, the doctor gets picked up by none other than the cat nun nurse, Novice Haim, who started working directly for the Face of Bo as penance for her past sins. First, she takes the doctor to the Senate building and reveals that the people trapped on the motorway and those peddlers, they're the only humans left on New Earth. It seems a patch called Bliss came on the scene a little over 2 decades ago, and everyone loved it, except something went wrong with it, and the patch turned into a virus. It wiped out the population in just 7 minutes. Luckily, the people on the motorway were able to survive, so when the virus collapsed, they could simply repopulate and rebuild. Or they would if they weren't trapped. There's not enough power to get the motorway open. The Face of Bo has plugged itself directly into the power grid, with help from Novice Haim, in order to keep everything going. Unfortunately, it's taken all he has. He's dying. But with the doctor there, he can jury-rig something to help the Face of Bo get those people to safety, because earlier the doctor found out what could be in the fog. The macra. Yes, the intelligent giant lobster, well, not lobster, intelligent giant crabs that enslaved that one colony of humans. Well, they're back. They're big. Bigger than the biggest houses. Mostly claw. And nothing but animals now. They've adapted to feed off of truck exhaust. And they crush any vehicle that comes too close. So the doctor and the Face of Bo have to get those people out. Luckily, the guy driving the car that kidnapped Martha, well, he's pretty good at flying, and after they reactivate their vehicle to get some air, the guy does some fancy flying, and with a little bit of luck, they make it to a safe spot to avoid the macro. Long enough for the doctor and the face of both to rig something up to break open the motorway and send everyone back to the surface. Unfortunately, it was too much for the face of Bo. His life tube cracks and he spills out. And he lives just long enough to meet Martha, say goodbye to Novice Haim, and deliver a message he mentioned the last time he and the doctor met. His last message to the Time Lord. You are not alone. And so, because Martha has gone on and on about Time Lords and showed curiosity about the Doctor's homeworld, she decides to demand some answers about that. And so the Doctor admits what happened. The war against the Daleks, Gallifrey burning, and the Doctor being the last of the Time Lords. Where is he? And so, having shut down the mood peddlers, the Doctor and Martha go on to their next adventure. Old New York. They show up in a place called Hooverville in the 1930s, watching the Empire State Building get built. Unfortunately, they come across a mystery. People are disappearing, and the guy in charge of building the Empire State Building, he's hiring workers left and right to do extremely hazardous work at the very top of the tower. And eventually it's revealed that the cult of Skaro ended up in Old New York when they did their temporal shift. And they've got some sort of final plan going on, an experiment. And those who aren't fit for the experiment get turned into slaves. Not just any slaves, but were-pig slaves. They're no longer sapient, they just follow orders. And they look like something Circe would develop. And we finally get their names. Khan, Jast, they, and leader Sek. And when one of the Daleks talks with the guy in charge of the building project and finds out that he's very Dalek-like in his thoughts and ideas, and shows a lot of fealty to the Daleks, even though they invaded his mind and started influencing him. They deem him worthy for part of the final experiment. Dalek Sek ends up fusing with him to become a human Dalek. And before I tell you that, I gotta upload this. Stay tuned for part 2.